Good morning, and welcome to Community Church of Chesterland, where no matter where you are on life's journey, you are always welcome here. I'd like to welcome those that we see weekly, and our guests, and those that have only been with us for a few weeks. I would also like to welcome Tyler, our musician this morning, and Carol on the organ.
Today's moment of focus is the poem, "The God We Hardly Knew" by Oscar Romero, the Catholic priest who spoke out against social injustice and was assassinated in 1980 while celebrating Mass by the hard-right military government in El Salvador, where he regularly condemned in his sermons. No one can celebrate a genuine Christmas without being truly poor. The self-sufficient, the proud, those who, because they have everything, look down on others. Those who have no need, even of God, for them there will be no Christmas. Only the poor, the hungry, those who need someone to come on their behalf will have that someone. That someone is God, Emmanuel, God with us. Without poverty of spirit, there can be no abundance of God. Scripture is Isaiah 11, 1-10 from the Inclusive Bible. Then a shoot will sprout from the stump of Jesse. From Jesse's roots, a branch will blossom. The Spirit of Yahweh will rest on you. A spirit of wisdom and understanding, a spirit of counsel and strength, a spirit of knowledge and reverence for Yahweh. You will delight in obeying Yahweh, and you won't judge by appearances or make decisions by hearsay. You will treat poor people with fairness and will uphold the rights of the land's downtrodden. With a single word, you will strike down tyrants. With your decrees, you will execute evil people. Justice will be the belt around your waist. Faithfulness will gird you up. Then the wolf will dwell with the lamb, and the leopard will lie down with the young goat. The calf and lion cub will graze together, and a little child will lead them. The cow will feed with the bear, their young will lie down together. The lion will eat hay like the ox. The baby will play next to the den of the cobra, and the toddler will dance over the viper's nest. There will be no harm, no destruction anywhere in my holy mountain. For as water fills the sea, so land will be filled by the knowledge of Yahweh. On that day, the root of Jesse will serve as a symbol to the peoples of the world. Nations will flock to you, and your home will be a place of honor.
Welcome to the second week of Advent, which is peace, and this is your second week of Advent blessing. The peace of God with us does not come as law and order or as enforcement and control. Peace cannot be imposed from on high. Peace cannot be commanded. The peace of God with us is chaotic and wild. It's unruly. It's unpredictable. The peace of God with us is collective, liberating us from deadly complicity. Peace is gestating within the darkness. It comes unexpectedly. Peace invites our expectation and demands our participation. Prepare the way for peace, yes, but peace with justice. May peace be birthed among, within, and through us this Advent. So today's text from Isaiah is a deeply imaginative and poetic and restorative glimpse into the very nature of the divine. This passage shows us how the divine spirit works in the world. And this passage is, in my opinion, one of the more powerful scripture passages from the Advent lectionary, especially in the context of peace. Now, this text emerges out of something the nation of Israel had grown really all too familiar with, and that is destruction and desolation. And these happened for a variety of reasons, whether due to war or being exiled into a foreign nation or occupation by other tribes, or even due to the corruption within their own leadership. Israel always seemed to be in various states of chaos and upheaval, of living without peace. And it was not uncommon for many of the writers of the books from the Hebrew Bible to interpret Israel's oppressive history not through the lens of victimhood, but through the lens of God's judgment, of God's displeasure for how Israel conducted itself in a variety of arenas. Now, here in the modern United States, everything from hurricanes to mass shootings to the divorce rate has been blamed on God's judgment upon our country because of, take your pick, abortion, or because of LGBTQ rights, or because women work outside the home. The trauma, or because organized and sponsored prayer is, not allowed in schools. Well, not supposed to be allowed in schools. I mean, after the 9/11 disaster, Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson, two of the most powerful and prominent evangelical leaders of easily the last 50 years, they blamed the attacks on, quote, the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians, the ACLU, all of them who have tried to secularize America. I point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen, unquote. But in several books of the Bible, particularly in Isaiah, God's judgment, at least through the eyes of the writers, God's judgment is reserved for something else, and equity and compassion. Go figure. And so in chapter 10 of Isaiah, before we arrive at today's famous passage of peace, we hear of God's anger not with those who ensure equality and compassion for people, even if it deviates from their standards of normativity. But according to Isaiah, God's judgment is brought about by those who, quote, write oppressive laws, who turn aside the needy from justice and rob the poor of their rights, that widows may be their spoil and orphans their prey, unquote. Chapter 10 of Isaiah goes on to say that the days will come when the tallest trees will be cut down and the lofty will be brought low. God will hack down the thickets of the forest with an axe, and Lebanon with its majestic trees will fall. And this imagery is then echoed later in the Gospel of Matthew when John the Baptist cites this passage from Isaiah and tells the religious elite that the divine axe is poised at the base of their trees. And from these images of the tall and mighty trees coming down, we move on to today's text from Isaiah, where we are given that image of a tree stump with a single shoot sprouting out of it. In other words, judgment has already been handed down by God onto Israel specifically for not embracing compassion and justice and equity. But that's not the end of the story, because out of that stump, a shoot now sprouts. The image of a nation being cut down due to its injustice is also combined with an image of a new shoot sprouting from a stump. And so taken together, these two chapters send a very clear message to the reader. And that message is this: destruction is a consequence when oppression and greed and corruption are ruling the land, and it is only a matter of time before the chickens inevitably come home to roost. But once the corruption has been brought about, or once the destruction from the corruption has been brought about, then space is made for something new. And from the remnants of destruction, incredible things can be born and new trees can grow. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the imagery of trees is used here today in Isaiah, because when we read about the cycles of destruction that Israel would go through in its history, both its actual history and its narrative history, or its mythology, if you want to use that word, we see cycles lasting decades. And the oak trees that existed in the Middle East at this time took 20 to 30 years to grow into maturity. It was a cycle of a generation for these trees to grow. So not only is this imagery telling us that periods of corruption and injustice might transpire over a very long period of time, but also that the process of renewal and transformation represented in the shoot growing out of that stump of destruction, that this renewal might just take as long as the process of destruction took. Of course, the natural correlation of these passages is political in nature, right? I mean, the chapters are filled with talk of kings and leadership and nations. And at this point in our nation's history, metaphors of entrenched corruption and injustice, as well as the promise of renewal, these are very apt images indeed. And this is something we've discussed a lot over the last several months. But even though the context of this passage is rooted in political and communal conflict and oppression, we can also make connections with what it means to encounter the renewing power of the divine Spirit in all aspects of life, not just politically. At the heart of this text is God's ability to foster growth and to foster transformation and to foster peace where it might ordinarily not seem possible to do so. I mean, who looks at a tree stump and expects new growth? Who expects the wolf to live with the lamb or the cow and the bear to graze together in the same field? Or for a leftist to find peace with someone on the radical right? Or for Browns fans to peacefully coexist with Steelers fans? And that's the only sports ball reference you're going to get from me for the rest of the year. Or for someone who struggles with mental health issues to make peace with themselves. The last one is important to me because as tempting as it was for me to tailor a political statement from today's passage, it's actually one that speaks to me in a very different way, especially as someone who does, in fact, struggle with mental health issues, as someone who has struggled with depression and anxiety for the better part of my life since I can remember. And this time of year is always difficult for me. From aspects of the cold to the holiday season, the longer nights, and the expectations of performative joy because, hey, it's Christmas. All of these can make me feel like a hacked stump. Perhaps some of you can relate. And I'm not sharing this with you for sympathy. As a matter of fact, chances are there might be a few people here who see an admission of mental health struggles as a sign of weakness. But I share this because in a group this size, there are always others dealing with similar issues, whether due to past trauma or current medical issues, or for any number of reasons. Mental health struggles are more common than we might realize or be willing to admit. And for me, the imagery of today's passage is powerful to meditate on. A stump is an image of destruction, right? But not only of destruction, but destruction with little to no hope of new growth. But the shoot growing out of the stump in Isaiah is illustrative of the divine spirit lurking beneath the surface and moving at the root level of our lives, even though all that might appear visible are remnants of pain and destruction and loss. This passage from Isaiah reminds us of the cycles of life and how God ushers us through them. In Isaiah, the Israelites were mired in judgment and destruction once again. And similarly, we find ourselves in a time of significant transition culturally. But throughout the eras, throughout history, we are reminded that destruction is never the whole story. The stump is our winter. The stump is our pain. The stump is our struggles and depression and anxiety. But the stump is also our Advent. The stump is our waiting in the darkness for the anticipation of personal and communal transformation, of the peace to be found in God made flesh. And so the stump is also a sign of great hope as well as peace. The stump means that there is a chance, an opportunity to do things differently, to do something new, a chance at redemption or at liberation or at healing or at peace. The stump is the sign that not only is our pain real, but that our pain will not be the final word. May it be so.
There's no country. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion to lose. Imagine all imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us. In the world we'll live as one. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one.
That was awesome. Thank you. As we take part in communion today, remember that the divine Spirit seeks to be in communion with us, just as we are. The divine Spirit seeks connection and belonging with us. And perhaps more importantly, God also desires that we seek connection and belonging with one another so that we can live in peace rather than conflict and chaos, so that we might live in a spirit of collective flourishing and of justice and authenticity. So through this act of communion, we seek to give flesh to hope, peace, joy, and love during this Advent season, and to realize the fullness of the divine among us. Please remember that all are invited to take part in communion today. There are no exceptions. This is not a ritual of exclusion, but one of radical inclusion. However, there are also no expectations that you do, in fact, participate. Please do what you are comfortable with. And does everyone have theirs open? All right, and so with that, Jesus took a loaf of bread, blessed it, and broke it, like our world is broken. And he showed us the way to new life and hope by asking us to share our bread with one another in remembrance of his own example. And so through this broken bread, we participate in and become the body of the Christ in the world. In like manner, Jesus took the cup filled with the fruit of the vine that sustains us and links us to one another in troubled times, as well as good times. He blessed it and asked us to drink of that same spirit of loving kindness and uniting harmony that was in him. Through the cup of blessing, we anticipate and participate in the changing and transformative life of the Christ in the world. May it be so.
Morning. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jenny Wilson. I am one of the current co-conveners for the social justice team, along with my girlfriend, Megan Carver, over here. Want to invite you guys. Next week is our social justice team meeting. We are on Zoom and in person as hybrid. Just stay on after service. And please, I encourage you to join us, especially after I tell you all the cool things that we're doing. So we always open our service here talking about an extravagant welcome. And today what I'd like to do is offer a few thoughts on extravagant generosity. Since the start of the pandemic, our social justice team has undergone a lot of transformation. As our country and our world witness painful and historic change, we've become increasingly focused on important and affirming issues of inclusivity, equality, and ecological justice. When you financially give to Community Church of Chesterland, your dollars support two equally important funds, the operating fund and the Social Justice Fund. Operating funds support our physical space here and our staff. That includes things like heat, electricity, snow plowing so you can get in here, supplies, communion supplies, and very importantly, the salaries of our staff. Those are essentials to being able to worship here and have the kind of programming that we have. The Social Justice Fund, though, is separate, and your giving supports outreach to many of those issues that I've already mentioned. By giving nearly $15,000 this past year, I want to highlight how you have made a difference in 2022 for social justice. Youth at risk. You hear us talk all the time about Next Step, and now we're talking about A Place for Me. These are local nonprofits that help youth that are aging out of the foster care system. And over the year, we provided them with pantry and paper staples, snacks. We're doing the Adopt a Family Christmas Fund, which is right out there. You can sign up for today. And now we've reinstituted the monthly home cooked meal, which the kids are so grateful for. Disaster relief. Twice this year, we provided funds to war-torn Ukraine, one through a UCC fund and one through another Church World Service organization. Food insecurity. We do this through the bi-monthly meal kit ministry, providing kits to about 24 families twice a month. Clarendon Community Helps, we help this year. They fund school children in the summer that would otherwise probably not have lunches, and that happens all during the several months for Geauga County kids. And the Geauga Veterans Pantry, which helps provide pantry staples for them. Mental health and physical disabilities. We did this this year through the sponsorship of NAMI of Geauga County. NAMI is the National Association for Mental Illness, and it includes so many great problems, including suicide prevention for youth. Homelessness. We did this year through United Way, compiling welcome kits for those families entering shelter. Building safe spaces. We are doing this for the local LGBTQI plus community, mostly for this first Geauga Pride event where we had hundreds of attendees in Chardon. We did a National Coming Out Day event that offered support and love for those in the county. And we have an upcoming safe space dinner that Megan's going to talk more about to gather and engage one another at table. There are other ongoing collections, eyeglasses, snacks, stamps, ink cartridges. We support a lot of nonprofits you may not even be aware of. And these are just highlights of what we've done this past year. Consider the possibility of 2023. Here at Community Church of addressing any number of issues, including environmental justice and climate change, tea times for peace, getting to know our Muslim neighbors, our second annual Geauga Pride event, women's reproductive rights, immigration, racial justice, human trafficking, and on and on and on. There is more work to do, lots of work, exciting work, and an opportunity for change through all of us. What are you passionate about? Programming and these ministries take financing. So as we explore stewardship for 2023 here at Community Church, please consider your opportunity for extravagant generosity. Thank you.
I'm just here to remind you about the Safe Space Dinner on December 21st. After that inspiring speech by Jenny, if you are looking for that next thing to do, like our meeting is next Sunday, so you can join us after church. But the Safe Space Dinner will be at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, December 21st. It'll be in Swiler Hall, which is downstairs. It'll be before Advent, so if you're planning on being here, why not come early? Have some dinner, share something. I do have a sign-up link where you can sign up to bring a dish to pass or an RSVP if you just want to let us know that you're coming. That's it.
Sing a new world into being, sound a bold and hopeful crying, find a tune for silent yearning in your voice and Sing a new world into being. Blaze a heart and mind. Sing a new world into being, where the homeless find a home, where no children ever hunger, but are filled with God's shalom, where all people work for justice, where all hate and vengeance cease. Sing a new world into being. Raise your voice on knees of peace. Sing a new world into being. Join the ancient prophets' cry for a time of health and plenty, when all tears have been what dried, when compassion flows like waters, pouring balm for all who grieve. Sing a new world into being.
Whether we go from here to lands thriving, I'm hot, or lands in ruin, God goes with us. Whether we carry with us hope that is alive or feel heavy with despair, God will see us through. Whether we anticipate renewal or are awash in disbelief, God's Spirit stirs with readiness. Remember, you go always in the company of sacred potential. So go in peace. May it be so. Have a wonderful week. We do have our meal after, so please stay and enjoy some fellowship and food. And thank you all very, very much. Amen.